Yeah. Oh, that's hot. Wowie zowies, welcome back to the vlog, everyone. My name is Filip Latocha, and today we are going to be comparing the Nike Alphafly Next Percent with the Nike Vaporfly Next Percent. And we ask the $5 billion question: which one is the better racing shoe on race day? So with that in mind, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you already support the channel, thank you very much. Lots of cool stuff will be coming up. And yeah, I do appreciate everyone's continued support. So, without further ado, let's run the montage. Welcome back, everybody. So let's talk about the Next Percent competitors in the Nike market, which is the Vaporfly and the Alphafly. Let's start with the Vaporfly first, as we have discussed multiple times on this channel. Some of its specs, but as a recap, it does weigh 7 ounces, which is a pretty average weight in terms of the carbon plate racer in the racing shoe series. That does put it at about 200 to 205 grams. In terms of offset, there's a 10mm offset from heel to toe, where the heel is about 40mm and the toe box area is about 32mm. So this just barely meets the Olympic requirements to be able to run in this shoe. I know there was some controversy about this either earlier this year or last year, or maybe multiple years at a time. But anyways, that's kind of the deal with the stack height here. In terms of the foams, there is 2 layers of Zoom X foam running across the shoe with a carbon plate sandwiched in between both stacks of foam, which obviously gives it its signature ride if you've run in this shoe, which at this point in time I imagine a lot of people have. And if you don't even own a pair, you've probably at least tried one, and you kind of know what this carbon plate ride ultimately feels like. So that's kind of what the deal here is with this shoe in terms of the bottom with the carbon plate. Obviously what's going on here with the bottom and the rubber is that the platform is slightly wider here, obviously to increase your striking distance when you are doing your more mid-foot to forefoot strike. And of course, tied in with the carbon plate, this makes for, in my opinion, a very excellent ride and a very fast ride, and does ultimately give you a lot of forgiveness in terms of bone and joint pain if you are running frequently and a lot in shoes that don't have this type of support. So that being said, that is one of the big things I like about the Vaporfly in terms of running with it almost, I guess, back in the day, running daily with this particular shoe. Let's talk upper. So, of course, the Vaporweave upper, as you can see here, is pretty translucent. It's very flexible. It's very durable. The purpose of it ultimately is to prevent water absorption while you're running in the rain, or if you're running across snow in some instances. The Vaporweave won't absorb that much water and add extra weight to the shoe. Of course, we have the asymmetrical shoe line, or the offsets to the outside in this case, and then, as we've discussed before, the asymmetric offset tongue that Nike provides with this shoe, also very good on your foot. Most people I know probably have had a Nike shoe experience with this particular tongue and with this particular asymmetric offset. Of course, and as I was doing some research later on, this is called the Achilles pillow. That's kind of cool, I suppose. Of course, this Achilles pillow is very soft and it's very nice, and it prevents you from really scratching that Achilles heel while you're running, and it of course provides a nice, snug, comfortable ride as well. And in turn, because of that Achilles pillow, the collar doesn't really matter nearly as much. It is kind of the softer material which kind of bends outward in this particular instance, but it's not that big of a deal because the pillow is able to keep you snug regardless. And of course, this shoe is running right now at the time of this filming of this video at about $250, which again, I've discussed this before. $1 a mile in this shoe seems like a lot, but again, if you're following your heart and not your wallet, this is an awesome shoe to run in pretty much daily, or if not, just on a race schedule. So, with that in mind, let's get into the Alphafly next percent. In comparison to the Vaporfly, this shoe is about 7.4 to 7.6 ounces on average. So again, the shoe is a lot heavier because there's a lot more moving parts here with these air pockets, and of course with more foam, more work in the structure of the shoe, and that ultimately makes it weigh a little bit more. Is it noticeable? Not really. It's almost negligible because the number is just so thin. It just doesn't really matter that much, in my opinion. In terms of stack height, the heel, to my understanding, is 39 millimeters, whereas the forefoot is about 35, which ultimately gives this shoe a 4 millimeter offset from heel to toe. Now, that is probably one of the more shocking things with this particular shoe, because most people are used to this Vaporfly 8 to 10 millimeter offset that it has that almost arches it at something like this, whereas this shoe ultimately ends up kind of flattening out in this sense. And it's very strange that that's kind of the case, but again, if you're used to that type of ride, then you're going to ultimately enjoy the Alphafly. So of course, moving into the midfoot, forefoot area of the shoe, we do have these air pockets here, which ultimately give you extra propulsion and of course this snap while you're running, which ultimately, in my opinion, is designed to make you faster if you know how to utilize this technology. So if you are a heel striker, it's very unlikely that you're going to be utilizing these air pockets the way you would like to. But again, because I don't heel strike, I can't 100% confirm this, but that's probably my guess. Moving on into some of the forefoot stuff, of course, we have the fly plate technology, which again is just a carbon plate in the shoe, basically supporting the air zoom pockets that are basically in the forefoot of this shoe. And ultimately, it does two things. One, it's giving you a lot faster, a lot snappier ride as you're racing, as you're getting in the groove of high speeds while you're running. And it's also protecting your foot, your joints at almost all costs possible, because reinforcing your midfoot striking range with these air pockets and this carbon plate and this ZoomX foam is imperative to ensuring your longevity as a runner. In the upper, minus my 2 IQ shoe tying lace skills, as you can see, we can probably start with these shoelaces in this case. The serrated bumpy shoelaces here are basically designed to help you get a reinforced tie of your shoes, particularly in wet conditions, or if you're just not great at tying your shoes, it ultimately helps you. But as you can see, the consequence here is if you can't break the knot, it's very difficult to untie it. So I'm gonna have to work on this later tonight and hopefully get it untied, but I digress. In terms of this upper here, we have this Atom Knit technology, which is basically the upgrade to the Flyknit. And ultimately what the Atom Knit is supposed to serve is to prevent water absorption, similar to the Vaporfly Next Percent. The Atom Knit is like this plastic synthetic design that isn't similar to like this cloth that the Flyknit basically represents. And of course, it is very much, I'd say it's translucent. You can definitely see right through it, but not completely all the way through. And with the Atom Knit, you can see it's a lot more reinforced than the heel, obviously, so you don't crack the heel while you're running or lose any sort of snug or structure in the shoe. Again, the shoelaces are asymmetrical in this particular instance, which is also a nice thing if you're used to having an asymmetrical tie to the shoes. In terms of the collar, it does seem that they've taken the Flyknit collar, or the similar structure of the Flyknit collar as they've used in the past, and what they've done as an extra thing that I like, in my opinion, is they put these 2 notches here on the tongue of the shoe and the heel of the shoe, which allows you for a slick slide in of your foot. which ultimately does help you get into the shoe, because it is kind of a tight fit to get in here the first couple of times if you haven't done it before. Now that I'm looking at it, there is one con about the Alphafly that we need to address that I remember a commenter discussed with me before, is that because as a consequence of the forefoot area and the heel being slightly wider, this arch area of the shoe ends up becoming extremely thin. And if your foot is not used to having a thin arch shoe, this can cause some issues. So what do I mean by that is when you put your foot into this shoe, it's going to push out on this Atom Knit material if you have a slightly wider foot and maybe like just a slightly wider arch. And again, that can cause some issues if you're not prepped for that. So maybe it is worth trying the Alphafly out a few times before you actually buy it to see if you are experiencing any sort of pain in the arch while you're running in it. But in my personal experience with the shoe, I haven't felt such a thing, and I don't think my foot protrudes out of this arch nearly as much. The Alphafly Next Percent does run at about $275 currently, so that's obviously $25 more expensive than the Vaporfly Next Percent. But again, that kind of comes down to this idea of do you follow your heart or your wallet in this particular instance? And if you're willing to spend that extra $25 for a faster shoe. So I guess this is where we come into the comparisons of the pros and cons of both shoes. So let's get into them. So first and foremost, I've owned 5+ pairs of Vaporfly Next Percents, and I already know how the ride usually goes. And as I was saying before, $1 a mile in this shoe, sometimes a little more than $1 depending on how you run in this particular shoe. That being said, if you are willing to spend that money for this particular shoe, by all means go for it. And if you have that extra dough lying around, it could be worth going into the Alphafly, of course, depending on whether you're used to certain specs. So of course, that first spec to consider, of course, is the offset. Do you prefer running in a shoe that's more 4 to 6 millimeter offset or 8 to 10 millimeter? So do you like it when your midfoot is more arched than flat? So that's going to make a big difference in your ultimate shoe choice. The second thing to consider is which upper do you like better? Do you like this Vaporweave material, or do you like the Atom Knit material better? Because that does make a serious difference in particular with these shoes. But again, you have to try them both out just to make sure you can determine which one you like better. But it is my opinion that if you did like the Flyknit series shoe, you will enjoy the Atom Knit. But again, I do strongly urge you try them before you buy them in this particular case. Another thing that we have to probably discuss is some of the upgrades that the Alphafly has over the Vaporfly. So one piece of upgrade or topic of contention in the Next Percent series shoes right now is the carbon plates in both shoes. So of course, the Vaporfly Next Percent just has a carbon plate sandwiched across the 2 layers of Zoom X, as we mentioned before. And the plate is basically running across from heel to toe, and it allows you as a runner to have the ability to heel strike in the shoe and still have the effects of the carbon plate. Of course, the shoe is more designed for this midfoot to forefoot area striking of the carbon plate, at least in my opinion. I think this allows ultimately for a wide variety of runners to be able to use this particular shoe and just ultimately have a good time with the carbon plate. With the Alphafly, this is probably the big elephant in the room, of course, is the fly plate with these air zoom pockets in the midfoot here. Of course, you can see the fly plate. There is, in fact, a carbon plate in the shoe that does run across the entire shoe. However, it is my opinion that if you're a heel striker, you're probably not going to like this shoe. This foam really does sink into the ground as you strike, and I don't think you're activating the carbon plate as you're running in this particular shoe. Again, that is just my opinion. This is just something I witnessed while walking in this particular shoe. But if you're not a heel striker and you're doing more midfoot striking, then of course these air pockets do allow for a lot of springier ride, in addition to having that original carbon fiber plate effect of having that bounce. Now of course the air pockets do give you an additional bounce, but it is imperative that you are a midfoot striker, in my opinion, to activate these pockets properly. One of those things that they've done is they've made this heel and this forefoot area slightly wider on the shoe, so as you're taking turns, you will most likely not break your ankles while you're running in them. That is something that has commonly happened in previous Flyknit variations of shoes I've had. I will not mention which ones they are. But again, Basically what this ultimately does is prevent you from having that slippage on turns, but as a consequence, taking turns may sometimes be hard if you're not used to running with these air pockets. So of course the turns are designed that you're going to catch on the air pockets here on the sides, but with that being said, you do have to practice it a couple of times just so you know how taking a turn feels in these shoes. The forefoot area and the heel is slightly not as wide, but again, same principle. Turning in these shoes is kind of something you got to practice. I would say ultimately the Vaporfly does handle better than the Alphafly in some instances, but that again is debatable, and I think some people would be, if you've had an opposite experience, I would definitely let me know in the comments for sure. The last thing we'll probably address, of course, is the price, as we've mentioned before. $250 versus $275. Without me necessarily knowing the lifespan of the Alphafly, this does kind of come down to, of course, the question, do you follow your heart or do you follow your wallet? So if you are in the business of getting a cheaper, fast racing shoe for all sorts of distances, then the Vaporfly Next Percent is definitely your play. But if you are a more passionate runner, I guess I could say, if you're a lot more passionate in the running field and you want to have something a little more experimental, there's something that I think is a little bit faster in my opinion, that costs a little more, then maybe the Alphafly is the play for you. So I think we're going to end the video there, because I do have to still untie this knot, of course. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Is there a particular thing you definitely dislike or like about either of the shoes? Is there anything you would like to let other viewers know in terms of both shoes, lifespan, durability, your personal experiences with them? Let me know in the comments below, and then of course make sure you like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we're definitely going to be testing these a lot more, as we will be having a 5K time trial in both shoes released pretty soon after this initial release. So with that in mind, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys real soon.